The gorilla had no name. Not yet. In the humid depths of what is now the Central African Republic, roughly 800 years ago, a tribe of great apes lived in isolation. They were unremarkable, just gorillas doing gorilla things, eating bamboo, building nests, avoiding leopards. But something was watching them. The meteor struck during a lightning storm, which is almost too dramatic to believe. Yet the oral histories passed down through generations of psychically awakened apes are remarkably consistent on this point. A streak of silver fire, a tremor that silenced the jungle. And then the glow. The crater sat smoking for 3 days before the bravest of the silverbacks approached. His name, translated loosely, meant "he who walks first." And walk first he did right into the radioactive heart of something that had traveled millions of miles to find him, or perhaps to find his descendants. The transformation wasn't immediate. It took generations. But slowly, imperceptibly, the gorillas of that bloodline began to change. Their cranial capacity expanded. Their eyes held something that hadn't been there before: understanding, calculation, ambition. By the 5th generation, they could move objects with their thoughts. By the 10th, they could read minds. Here's where the legend gets interesting. Psychic gorillas didn't reveal themselves to the world. They weren't stupid. They watched humanity from the shadows of the jungle, observing as empires rose and fell, as technology advanced. As the hairless apes built machines that could circle the globe, and they waited. According to the legends preserved in Gorilla City, yes, that's a real place. Hidden from human detection by advanced cloaking technology, the early psychic gorillas established a strict hierarchy. Power was everything. The strongest mind ruled, period. This created problems. You see, when everyone can read everyone else's thoughts, deception becomes nearly impossible. Trust, paradoxically, became abundant. But so did competition. Every gorilla knew exactly how powerful every other gorilla was. There was no bluffing your way to the top. The bloodlines became everything. Families with stronger psychic potential rose to prominence. Those with weaker abilities were marginalized, not through cruelty,
Yes.
necessarily, but through the cold mathematics of a telepathic society. If your thoughts were louder, clearer, more forceful, you simply dominated. And one bloodline stood above all others: the line of Grodd. The name itself comes from an ancient word meaning thunder mind, or, more literally, the thought that breaks. For centuries, the Grodd lineage produced the most powerful telepaths their hidden society had ever seen. But power, as it tends to do, corrupted. The early Grodds were reportedly benevolent. They used their abilities to protect their people, to advance their technology, to keep Gorilla City hidden from human explorers who occasionally stumbled too close. They were respected, revered even. Then came the schism. Approximately 200 years ago, the Grodd bloodline split into 2 factions. One believed in isolation, in keeping Gorilla City hidden forever, allowing humanity to destroy itself through its own stupidity. The other believed in conquest. Guess which side won? The conquest faction didn't immediately attack. They were patient. They spent decades perfecting their psychic abilities, developing technology that merged their mental powers with mechanical amplification. They experimented, they trained. And then, in the 20th century, they produced the most powerful psychic their species had ever known. The gorilla who would simply be called Grodd. His abilities eclipsed those of his ancestors by orders of magnitude. Where they could read minds, he could rewrite them. Where they could move objects, he could level buildings. His psychic signature was so powerful that other telepaths across the world, human and otherwise, could feel him like a migraine pressing against the back of their skulls. He was, in the parlance of his people, the culmination. The legends had predicted him. Ancient texts, carved into stone by the earliest psychic gorillas, spoke of a final mind, a being whose mental abilities would be sufficient to bring humanity to its knees. For centuries, each generation had hoped their strongest would be the one. None were. Until Grodd. But here's what the legends didn't predict. Grodd's impatience, his arrogance, his repeated catastrophic failures. You would think that the most powerful psychic gorilla in history, backed by centuries of accumulated knowledge,